Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Games and Things. If you're wanting to build or add on to your entertainment room, go straight to the Ultimate Man Cave store, Games and Things. They have it all, folks, from pool tables to poker tables, bars to bar stools, the best in home theater seats. You name it, they got it. I got my home theater seats there, just terrific. They've lasted a long time, very affordable. They've got high-end seats. They've got affordable seats. They got them all. Games and Things, the corner of Lovell Road and Kingston Pike. Get out there and see them this week. All right, 2 questions for each side of the set here. I'll start with Daniel and Justin. Vols just grabbed another transfer from the portal, this time a starting cornerback from BYU. That's 2 from BYU that they've gotten this offseason. Ironic, since they were supposed to be opening with BYU this next year instead of Virginia. So I wonder if those guys would have transferred here and gone up against their old team if they'd still been playing BYU. Will the secondary be the number one concern for this Tennessee football team again in 2023?
I don't think so. I think with what they graduated on the defensive line, that I'm going more defensive line than actual secondary. And it kind of ties back into what we've been talking about the last half hour is you've got Willie Martinez as the coach there in the DBs, who's done a really good job at producing pros like Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley. But how's he going to do? Can he get them ready to play great in college, or is he just getting them ready for the pros?
It's the easiest group to look at based off of recency, what we just saw this season and how there were some inconsistencies there, a lot of injuries. I think it's the least proven group that's returning. Most important, I kind of tend to agree with Daniel that in the SEC, you've got to have defensive linemen and you've got to have waves of them. So I think, and they go hand in hand. But to me, they're the least proven and they're going to be the most visible until they start to produce.
Yeah, and it's most visible for a second reason, too. I mean, if somebody gets through a line of the defensive line, you don't know if it was this guy or that guy. Somebody gets smoked out there on an island, you know he blew it. So, okay, very good. Next question for Josh and Vince. ESPN asked some anonymous coaches this week for their takes on a number of different topics. One of the topics they tackled was, would anyone close the gap on Georgia? And they said no. They said that Georgia would widen the gap on the SEC and on Tennessee. Let's take a look at what they said about the Volunteers, though. We can put up their quotes, I think. If we've got them, we may not have them. There we go. And I've got to call them up on my phone because our monitor's too far away. What they said about Tennessee, an SEC coordinator said they are legit. Their defense is more talented than people give them credit for, and that offense, it's a beast. I don't know if they'll be as talented because the Hyatt kid was super special and Hendon Hooker was 25 years old. He should have been a Heisman finalist. What you saw they did in the bowl game with a lot of their backups, they kicked Clemson's rear. I don't know why I said rear. I've said worse than that word many times on the show. At any rate, they also went on, another coach said, it will be interesting to see what Tennessee does a year later. Are they better or worse? Heupel has always been pretty consistent running that scheme. Is it Milton or is it the guy that everybody knows you're paying $2 million a year? Does that create problems in the locker room? All right. They then went on to say that South Carolina is too far away. They're not going to catch them, and that Florida is a lot farther away than people think. So, in other words, they also said, these coaches, these anonymous coaches, said the biggest challenge to Georgia is probably going to come from the West, with either Alabama or LSU. Vince and Josh, does Tennessee or anybody else in the SEC close the gap on Georgia this year?
So I think they can make the gap less wide. Can they close it all the way and catch it? I think it's a Tennessee-Georgia
Well, that's what I
conversation.
mean. Can they get it closer?
Yeah, I think Tennessee's recruiting will help with that. The talent at quarterback can arguably improve. That doesn't mean match the performance of what Hendon did. That's a big question. Georgia's just so impressive in what they're doing. Back-to-back national titles, and they're going to continue to recruit at an incredible level. So I have a hard time believing catch up, but it's Tennessee's task. I don't believe South Carolina. I don't see Florida doing it right now.
Yeah, I agree. It is. Look, Georgia is not going anywhere. We saw last year, it didn't matter how many players they lose to the NFL, they're still going to be really good because of everything they've developed and they stockpile those athletes. Does Tennessee take a step back in terms of record? That's, to me, the only way you can make a case that the gap is widening. But in terms of the program development, I do think that gap is shrinking a little bit because Tennessee is rising up, even if everyone else is slipping back. So it depends on how you want to classify it. But record-wise, it could widen because Tennessee could be maybe a game or so less.
I agree with that, and I think Georgia. Look, their big non-conference game last year was Oregon, and they pounded them 44-6. So I don't know that they would have really struggled with Oklahoma, but the SEC came back and said, all right, cancel that series since they're coming into the league. So Georgia does have a really, an even easier schedule next year in their non-conference. So,
I mean, they're backups in the national title game, and the game was over at that point. But their backups winning the game is like, well, those are starters for everybody else,
Right.
in the country.
well, it's a lot like the kind of the Alabama run where they had the shark's teeth, and it's just like these guys go, and you wonder, you're going to replace them. Yeah, they are.
The one thing I was going to add just quickly is I think they're going to keep the gap widening because of one guy, and it's not Kirby Smart. It's Cochran, their guy that was their strength coach, is their special teams coordinator now. That guy's won more titles in the last 13 years than Nick Saban, than Dabo Swinney, than anyone else. He has something that, and Urban Meyer said strength coach is the most important position you can hire, and he does something different. I don't know what it is. And if you look at Georgia's players, the size of them versus what TCU was and the other ones, I don't think there's anyone that can do what he does.
Butch Jones would probably agree with you on the whole strength coach thing, since that kind of torpedoed him here. All right, when we come back, Pro Football Focus has ranked the top 100 NFL draft prospects. We'll show you who from Tennessee made that list, and we'll tell you who was the highest rated guy. It's not who you think. Come on back on the Sports Source.